Hello, I'm John Bangay. This is the west front of Peterborough Cathedral, probably unique in English cathedral architecture. The classical three-bay portico was probably based on an earlier design at Lincoln Cathedral. As you can see, it has a slightly asymmetrical appearance because the earlier Norman building behind, the tower on the south side, was never completed. These arches are tilted slightly forward, so as you approach the cathedral, they have an overwhelming effect. Above the arches, you can see in the little niches sculptures of the three patron saints of the cathedral, Paul, Andrew and Peter. And this was originally the Church of St. Peter, and we're in the borough of Peter, which is where we get the name Peterborough. The earliest church was established here in 656 AD, and it quickly became a centre of worship and wealth. The original town that grew up alongside it became known as the Golden Borough. Unfortunately, that attracted unwelcome visitors. In AD 870, the original abbey was destroyed by the Viking raiders and much of the surrounding town as well. This is the famous header stone, which dates from that period. It's purported to show the bodies of 12 monks, 6 on each side, who were slaughtered by the Vikings. But more recent research suggests these may well be the bodies of the 12 apostles. These small circular holes in the top of the stone may well be devotional ones for when you are praying. After a time, the monastery was rebuilt, and in 1066, when William the Conqueror invaded, the monks elected Brand, a Saxon monk. This annoyed William, who imposed heavy fines, and when Brand died, he installed a Norman, Turold, in his place. Brand had bestowed a knighthood on his nephew, a fiercely patriotic Saxon warrior called Hereward the Wake. Hereward wanted to stop the abbey's riches falling into Norman hands, and he led an army which sacked the monastery and carried off its riches to Ely. Hereward's fame was short-lived, and he was later betrayed to the Normans. The Norman abbot kept strict control. One day, in a bad mood, legend says he cursed the monks, who in turn cursed the kitchen staff because breakfast was cold, because the kitchen fire would not light. The kitchen staff cursed the fire, calling, "Devil, take the fire!" whereupon it roared into life, setting fire to the whole monastery and burnt for 9 days. The old monastery was destroyed, and the Normans began rebuilding the cathedral. The building was still a monastery, but the rebuilding, which began in 1118, was the creation of the cathedral we see today. It was built east to west in the very distinctive rounded Norman arch style. Rebuilding costs were high, and when Benedict of Canterbury was appointed in 1177, he had the perfect fundraising idea. He had witnessed the murder of Thomas à Becket in Canterbury Cathedral, and he brought with him a small bottle of Becket's blood. Pilgrims to Peterborough could make a generous donation to drink a glass of holy water tinctured with a few drops of Becket's blood. The cathedral had other fundraising reliquaries, including St. Oswald's arm, watched over in his watchtower by the reliquaries priest. Eventually, the building was paid for and completed, so we can say that this beautiful building with its wooden roof, which is unique in England and only one of 4 in the whole of Europe, was paid for, at least in part, by Oswald's arm and Becket's blood.
En 1533, Enrique VIII se divorció de su primera esposa, Catalina de Aragón, y la expulsó al castillo de Kimbolton, donde está a unas 25 millas de aquí, de Peterborough. Aquí la inscripción dice Catherine, reina de Inglaterra. Pero eso fue un título que Enrique nunca le permitió que usara. Aquí la gente pues ha sido, todavía la quieren mucho, porque fue muy amada por el pueblo de siempre. Y todavía la gente viene, le hace ofrendas de flores, de granadas, Granada siendo el emblema que ella escogió. Y la cosa crece.
A few years later, Henry VIII's younger daughter, Elizabeth, came to the throne. Now she was threatened by Mary, Queen of Scots, who also had a claim to the English throne. After some time, Elizabeth imprisoned Mary in nearby Fotheringhay Castle, and after a plot to murder Elizabeth was discovered, implicating Mary, sadly, Elizabeth had to have Mary executed and brought here for burial. Later, Mary's son, James, who became James I of England, had her body exhumed and carried and reinterred in Westminster Abbey, London. Robert Scarlett was the gravedigger for this cathedral for more than 60 years. Just before he died, he claimed he had buried two queens, Mary, Queen of Scots, and Catherine of Aragon, and all the townsfolk twice over. He's the only layman to be buried inside the cathedral. When Henry VIII dissolved the monasteries, Peterborough's last abbot, John Chambers, successfully supervised the conversion of the monastery to a cathedral, and he became the first bishop of Peterborough, the only English abbot to convert in that way. After the Civil War, Cromwell's Parliament ordered the dismantling of these cloisters, and the stone was used for cathedral repairs or simply sold off, so that all that is left is some pieces of the lavatorium and some beautiful carvings over one of the doorways. The cathedral has many other architectural wonders, including the fan roof vaulting in the new building and the south transept windows designed by the pre-Raphaelite painter Rossetti and made by William Morris. Today the cathedral is still a centre of worship and ministry for the city and its diocese. The cathedral sits at the heart of the city or borough of Peterborough, and its famous spires rise above the city skyline, and its unique western arches, the triple arches, welcome visitors from around the world. This is the view I chose to draw, and you can obtain copies of my drawing in the cathedral shop. Peterborough Cathedral's history is turbulent and often violent. Today, it is a place of quiet dignity, away from the stresses and pressures of the modern world, where anyone can find peace and harmony in this house of God.